少年下棋，交接无独雄，肝胆动，毛发松，力看重，死神痛，一诺千金重。
The plot of Where Winds Meet draws deeply from history, but it is not historical fiction in the strict sense, like Kingdom Come, Deliverance. Instead, it belongs to the lineage of Assassin's Creed or Metal Gear Solid, an alternate universe narrative that reshapes real events, figures, and geopolitical tensions to serve its wuxia-inflected world-building. What follows is an account of the events in Qinghe before 962 CE. The dream of an ageless life has always haunted humankind, yet this impossible desire curdles into danger. In legend and lore, immortality is never a gift, but a curse, bringing burden, corruption, and endless loss. So it was in the world of Where Winds Meet. Over 4 centuries ago, in an age of turmoil recalling the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms, known as the Northern and Southern dynasties, the Witherwilds of Qinghe were not yet the wasteland they would become, though no safer for it. Miasma hung heavy in the forests. Venomous creatures prowled beneath the roots. Few dared to dwell there. But one woman chose this forsaken land as her refuge. Once a master of poison, she withdrew from Jianghu carrying a creation born of her craft. A parasite whispered to grant immortality. In a hidden village, she adopted a boy as her grandson, one whose rare constitution repelled all venomous creatures. She named him Ba Wu and concealed his unusual face behind a deer-shaped mask, an echo of the region's ancient totems. Raised in seclusion, Ba Wu knew nothing of Jianghu or the world beyond the trees, until, at 17, he rescued a wandering youth, Chen Huaixing, who had braved the miasmic forest and stumbled into their hidden world. Beyond the woods, the realm boiled with unrest. Jianghu was a snarl of conspiracies, shifting allegiances, and deaths spoken only in whispers. Into this chaos stepped Chen Huaixing, searching for a medicinal formula said to come from an immortal sage, hoping to save his family from a mysterious fungus that bloomed from the bodies of the dead. Ba Wu understood at once whom Chen sought, no celestial being, but himself. His grandmother had kept a great toad, a so-called toad king, to whom all venomous creatures would come bearing rare herbs. The creature showed a fondness for Ba Wu, and from this grew the rumour that Ba Wu possessed a supernatural gift that subdued all poisonous beings. Thus did the people refer to him as the immortal sage. Chen's remarks about the immortal sage offended Ba Wu, yet he was enthralled by the youth's tales of a Jianghu he had never known. In a moment, shaped by sympathy and longing, Ba Wu stole his grandmother's secret formula, sealed it inside a lamp, and entrusted it to Chen. Chen left the Witherwilds proclaiming himself the disciple of the immortal sage, yet no word of him ever reached Ba Wu again. Years passed. Before her death, Ba Wu's grandmother entrusted him with the Toad King and the immortality parasite housed within its body. Soon after, Ba Wu was drawn from the forest by the desperate pleas of Jianghu wanderers. He drove away the venomous creatures tormenting them, yet instead of gratitude, they demanded the relic he guarded. Their pursuit forced him back toward the village, pressure mounting until the confrontation reached its breaking point. And then the earth itself tore open. Whether born of an earthquake or some unfathomable martial force, the ground split to reveal the Gleaming Abyss. Ba Wu and several villagers were swallowed whole, cast into its depths. Fearing they would perish before rescue ever came, Ba Wu used the parasite to grant them a state of quasi-immortality, but the gift soon revealed its curse. Their emotions withered and their hearts hollowed out as if the abyss itself was eroding them into emptiness. No one knew how much time had passed in the depths of the Gleaming Abyss when one day, Chen Huaixing stumbled into its darkness, gravely wounded. He refused the parasite's life-prolonging touch and died shortly after, but not before returning the lamp to Ba Wu. Within it lay an antidote formula he had crafted during his years away, one that could restore a person to their normal state. The long-delayed truth, that his friend had never betrayed him, rekindled a faint ember of humanity in Ba Wu's hollowed heart. He buried Chen Huaixing at the mouth of the abyss and resolved to brew an antidote for all, to leave the shadows below and to pass his knowledge on to another. Thus ended the tale of Wraith Village and the Gleaming Abyss, until the 10th century. Before we go further, one question remains. Does the parasite truly grant immortality? In the depths of the Gleaming Abyss, a gravestone bears the inscription, "Here rest the 5 of the Yang lineage who sought to bind their filial bond unto eternity and partake together in deathless life. Yet when they descended into the abyss, where neither sun nor moon cast their light, the waning of the vermin drew them likewise to their end. Immortality, it seems, is no more than a life unnaturally prolonged, sustained only by the parasite. Yet the temptation of immortality is difficult to resist, even when it exists only as rumour wrapped in myth. After the fall of the Tang dynasty, the world lay in ruins. Death and disease drifted across the land like passing shadows. Sometime during the Zhenming era, 915 to 921 CE, a doctor named Shuiyue wandered the Jianghu with her 2 disciples, Sun Yuan and Sun Butzi, healing the afflicted wherever they travelled. Sun Yuan would later found the Silver Needle sect, under her wish not only to save the sick, but also to give doctors a refuge, a spindle of stability in an age of turbulence. She remains the sect's leader at the time of our story. Sun Butzi, however, is the one who brought Liu Qingyi into the Gleaming Abyss and experimented on her, as recounted in the previous video. He was not a villain at the start. His wish was simple: to free people from the torment of illness and to release doctors from a lifetime of self-sacrifice. From this seed grew a far bolder ambition: to liberate humanity from the frailty of the body itself, forever hunted by death and disease. In Kaifeng, Sun Butzi discovered a strange, flower-like fungus that seemed to promise progress toward this goal. But his research yielded only poison, a cold-born affliction that hollowed its victims and transformed them into zombie-like dream puppets. His experiments sowed the seeds of a crisis that would erupt decades later. Perhaps his studies warped his mind, or perhaps the darkness of the age seeped too deeply into his heart. Whatever the cause, Sun Butzi abandoned the healer's path and pursued mastery of poison instead. When Shuiyue uncovered the truth, she struck him down, gravely wounded him, and expelled him. Yet Sun Butzi's obsession with immortality did not fade. When rumours spread of an immortal sage who had once dwelled in Qinghe's Gleaming Abyss centuries before, he brought Liu Qingyi there and resumed his experiments. Upon uncovering the tale of Ba Wu and the truth behind the so-called parasite of immortality, he realised the organism could endure long enough to serve his purpose only within a body already steeped in poison. Thus, he began to poison not only Liu Qingyi, but also the nearby settlement, deceiving the villagers into ingesting his crafted toxins by scattering rumours throughout the region. This was the true origin of the curse, and the mysterious illness that plagues Wraith Village when we later explore it in gameplay. The dream puppets haunting the Gleaming Abyss are those very villagers, Sun Buqi's test subjects, alongside Liu Qingyi. His experiments succeeded only in her owing to her unusual constitution. But when Liu Qingyi longed for peace in death rather than the twisted immortality forced upon her, Sun Butzi's hopes shattered, and he left in despair. During the brief, quiet years she spent in the abyss with Li Zuo sometime after 923, the poison Sun Butzi had infused into the villagers began to seep outward into the surrounding settlements. Liu Qingyi went out to Wraith Village wearing a deer-headed mask, easing the villagers' symptoms as best she could. Believing she could not be mortal, they revered her as a deer goddess, and when she vanished in 936 CE, they took it as divine abandonment. In truth, it was the year she took her own life. Depressed by her death and her decision, Li Zuo had long lost faith in humankind and decided to follow the path once taken by Sun Butzi in a way that is even more outrageous. At his side stood a young man who had been brought into the Gleaming Abyss when he was still a child by his parents who had believed the rumours spread out by Sun Butzi. After the deaths of his parents, Liu Qingyi became the only one who ever cared for him. When Liu Qingyi died in 936 CE, he was left with no one and nowhere to return to, except to follow Li Zuo. Li Zuo gave him a name marked by emptiness, void, corresponding to the in-game term wuxiang, formlessness, drawn from a doctrine in the Diamond Sutra. All forms are but illusions. To perceive that forms are not what they seem is to behold the Tathagata. The meaning is that all the images and phenomena we can perceive, appearances, sounds, scents, tastes, and more, are but illusions arising from conditioned causes, flaring into existence for an instant before passing away. They are not eternal or unchanging, and truth can only be apprehended by seeing beyond their fleeting surface. Yet in Li Zuo's case, the irony is obvious. A deformed child whose very name invokes formlessness seems destined to have his identity consumed by orders from someone else, a violence imposter who declares his own truth by erasing all who stand before him. But this destiny falters when he crosses paths with the 19-year-old Jiang Yan in the year 946. Let us turn back to a few years before 946. Sometime after Xi Jingtang ceded the 16 prefectures of Yanyun to the Khitans in 936, a boy named Tian Ying and his younger brother Tianxi became refugees as Khitan forces pressed southward. The brothers eventually found shelter in Qinghe, working as apprentices at a local blacksmith's forge. In 942 CE, after Xi Jingtang's death, his adopted son Shi Chongui ascended the throne of the Later Jin. While the Tian brothers came of age in the quiet countryside, Shi Chongui, seated in the palace at Kaifeng, grew increasingly resentful of the humiliation tied to his predecessor's concessions. Determined to cast off his vassal status, he refused to acknowledge himself as a Khitan subordinate, thereby provoking Emperor Yelyu Deguang. That act of defiance lit the fuse for the Khitan's 3 consecutive southern campaigns against the Later Jin, from 944 to 947. During the Khitan's first southern campaign, 944 CE, their initial onslaught was fierce, yet the Later Jin armies ultimately repelled them at Quanzhou, forcing a withdrawal. General Wang Qing held the gates of Yecheng against the Khitan advance and was promoted to commander-in-chief of the Fengguo army. In the following year's second campaign, 945 CE, a crucial battle turned when a violent gale struck the Khitan formation. The Later Jin infantry seized the moment, counter-attacking at once and routing the Khitan cavalry. Wang Qing distinguished himself again on the battlefield and was elevated to acting Minister of Affairs, an honorary title often granted to meritorious commanders. Historically, these victories did little to stabilize Later Jin rule, as internal rivalries among generals and ministers steadily eroded the state. But for those in the Jianghu, the news was exciting. The thought of reclaiming the lost Yanyun prefectures ignited hope. Heroes, sect disciples, and aspiring wanderers flocked to Wang Qing's newly founded organization, the Northern Vow. Among them were notable figures: Jiang Yan, Wang Qing's adopted son and a martial prodigy who achieved sword mastery at 19, Ye Wanshan, the general commanding the Tianhu army under the Northern Vow, and Chu Qingzuan, a gifted disciple of the Well of Heaven. Yet the most celebrated were 8 Qinghe natives, later known as the 8 Heroes of Hedong. Hedong, literally east of the Yellow River, corresponds roughly to modern Shaanxi, not far from Qinghe, now within Hebei. Kaifeng, also known as Bianjing, Bianliang, or Dongjing, lies in present-day Henan. The 8 heroes of Hedong gathered under the guidance of the sleeping Taoist, a sage from Mount Zhongnan, the cradle of Taoist culture, who foresaw that the Khitans would one day sweep through Qinghe and then Kaifeng. The brothers Shengwen and Shengwu always appeared as one. As children, poverty drove their parents to abandon the frail Shengwen to the wilderness, leaving his fate to the mercy of the spirits. Unwilling to lose his brother, Shengwu followed him into exile. Together they made a living by performing shadow puppet plays. Shengwen giving voice to the lyrics, while the speech-impaired Shengwu brought the puppets to life with his hands. From countless rehearsals beneath lantern light, the two forged a martial style entirely their own. Feng Nengzi had once studied the basics of mechanism craft under a disciple of Mohist Hill. Though not a prodigy, his learning proved invaluable in battle, and he later befriended the famed blind assassin known as the Lunar Goddess. Most enigmatic of all was the Snake Doctor, a master of venoms who came to Qinghe while tracing the remnants of Sun Buzi's experiments. Some claimed he was there only to refine his arts of poison and medicine. Others whispered that a faint ember of heroism still burned within him. Gu Yue, disciple of the masked troupe, was a devoted musician who only took up arms when the thunder of Khitan cavalry scattered the audiences that once gathered to hear his music. Legends pushed the tale further still, claiming that not all of the 8 heroes of Hedong were human. One story speaks of an eagle with an iron claw, its eyrie perched upon the sheer cliffs beside the Palace of Annals. But the most familiar among them were arguably Liu Yan and Su Yuehai. Liu Yan had long dreamed of becoming a Jianghu hero, yet struggled to find a master willing to teach him despite his talent. One day, he stumbled upon a tattered martial manual. Through relentless practice, he somehow wrung real skill from its worn pages, eventually giving rise to one of the inner ways available to us in the game. After being rescued by Wang Qing during a Khitan campaign, he joined the Northern Vow and taught himself military strategy, hoping that one day he, too, would serve on the battlefield as a true Jianghu hero. Qiu Yuehai, by contrast, was an ordinary youth of Qinghe, a boy with no dreams of Jianghu glory, not even of becoming a fighter, until his village was trampled beneath the hooves of Khitan cavalry. Following Liu Yan into the verdant wilds, he later became a master of the spear. The flying technique known as meteor flight is his creation. According to the lore, during the Khitan's third southern campaign, their cavalry reached Dingzhou near the end of 946, where General Miaoshan held the gates. To break his resolve, the Khitans paraded his wife and daughter as captives. Yet Ye would not barter the safety of the city for his family's lives. His unyielding loyalty earned him the honorific Iron Heart General, though Dingzhou fell all the same. Knowing he could not stem the tide alone, Ye withdrew with the remnants of the Tianhu army to a small border town, nursing his grief and awaiting the day he might march north again to avenge his kin and reclaim the lost lands. The fall of Dingzhou opened the way for the Khitan cavalry to surge further south. There, Emperor Liu Deguang ensnared the later Jin commander Du Zhongwei, compelling him and his entire army to surrender soon after General Wang Qing fell at Zhongdu Bridge. The disaster shattered the Yellow River defensive line in a single stroke and left Kaifeng fatally short of defenders, leading directly to the fall of the city and of the later Jin in 947. In 947, Liu Deguang's cavalry pushed as far as Qinghe. The Northern Vow resisted fiercely, holding the front line for months. To protect the townsfolk, Liu Yan and his men opened the gates, not in surrender, but in sacrifice, luring the Khitans into the hidden stronghold of the Northern Vow. There, they ignited the buried charges, choosing to die with their foes. When the remaining 8 heroes of Hedong returned from their own battles, they found the entrance choked with Khitan corpses. Only after the echo of the explosion faded could they fight their way inside. Amid the wreckage lay a mound of bodies, Liu Yan at its peak, arrows lodged deep in his back, having fought until the very last breath left him. Elsewhere in Qinghe, Tianying and his younger brother Tianzi became refugees yet again after the Khitans razed their village. Together with Yan Datye, the blacksmith's son, they wandered by mistake into a bandit stronghold. As they plotted their escape, an unknown Jianghu wanderer appeared and single-handedly cut down most of the brigands. Tianying helped him bring the bandit chief to justice, and in that moment swore that one day he would become a man like him. He did not yet know that he would meet this very wanderer again in 952, after Chai Rong, during his journey north into the Yanyun region, rescued 100 stranded commoners and brought them back to the Palace of Annals. It was there that Tianying first began his martial training. In 952, Tianying passed through Wraith Village on his journey north. He was invited to a wedding feast, only to discover that the bride was a young blind girl the villagers had purchased from afar. Midway through the rites, the groom suddenly fell into madness and lunged at the girl with a blade. Before Tianying could grasp what was happening, the entire hall succumbed to the same frenzy, and the ceremony collapsed into a brutal melee. Amid the chaos, the village head cut down his own son, the groom, while Tianying pulled the blind bride to safety and pressed a knife into her hands, urging her to protect herself. He did not know that this moment would one day forge the legend of the assassin known as the Lunar Goddess. At dawn, the village head revealed the truth. The villagers suffered from a strange affliction that drove them into fits of madness. Only the so-called Deer Goddess had ever been able to soothe their torment, yet she had vanished long ago. They knew nothing of Sun Buzi's experiments or Liu Qingyi's fate. In desperation, the village head had turned to superstition, buying a blind girl as a bride in hopes that a wedding might bring auspice. He begged Tianying to seek the Deer Goddess in the Gleaming Abyss, but Tianying found nothing. Liu Qingyi had been dead for 16 years. Later that same year, Tianying joined the Ink-Bound Order, a sect of scholars and aspiring officials, only to realize he was not made for the scholar's path. So when Wei Renpu, Chai Rong's close confidant, invited him to join the Hanging Blade, he accepted without hesitation. Chai Rong ascended the throne of the later Zhou in 954 after the death of his adoptive father, Guo Wei. That same year, he commissioned the Peace Bell Tower, the tallest structure in Qinghe. Yet nothing about his world was peaceful. China lay fractured by warlord strife and ceaseless warfare, and the new emperor urgently needed to gather every resource at his disposal to pursue the great task of reunification. His gaze soon fell upon the overgrown power of Buddhist monasteries, whose unchecked expansion had bred deep social strain. Countless able-bodied young men shaved their heads to escape taxes and corvée, draining both the army and the labour force. Monasteries controlled vast tracts of land and a significant portion of copper production, eroding the state's fiscal foundations and worsening the chronic shortage of coins through excessive casting of statues. Worse still, discipline in some monastic communities had grown lax, and certain temples had become havens for criminals. With Khitan pressure mounting in the north and regional regimes stirring in the south, Chai Rong, resolute in his aim to strengthen the realm and reclaim lost ground, had little choice but to act with decisive force. In 955, Chai Rong launched a reform program grounded in the principle of restraining Buddhism. This campaign later came to be known as one of the four major Buddhist suppressions, the Sanwu Yizong Miefo, carried out by four different emperors between the 5th and 10th centuries. Historically, Chai Rong's measures were a carefully calibrated set of policies that addressed nearly every structural problem without undermining their overall effectiveness. Rather than enforcing a blanket ban or wholesale destruction, the reform reduced the monastic population by requiring both existing monks and newly ordained novices to pass examinations in scripture and doctrine, thus extending the meritocratic logic of the imperial examination system into the religious realm. Chai Rong's regime also sought to curb superstition and cultic excess. It prohibited forms of Buddhist self-mortification, such as self-immolation, arm burning, finger mutilation, amputation, bell-wearing, and vigil burning, and suppressed Taoist-related displays of magic, including trick props, talismans, heterodox rituals, claims of transformation, spirit summoning, holy water, and sacred lamps. Uniquely, this campaign was the only major anti-Buddhist movement that did not involve the Buddhist-Taoist rivalry. It reflected Buddhism's relative decline, its deep Sinicization, and a broader easing of tensions between the state and the clergy. This accommodation was already visible before Chai Rong's reign. Monastics who violated the law were punished under state legal codes. After this episode, China would never again witness a large-scale, top-down suppression of Buddhism. Owing to the circumstances of the age, Chai Rong's campaign became the mildest and most rational among the four, and one that provoked remarkably little resistance. The game, however, renders this history in a far simpler, yet far more dramatic form. To prevent unrest among the people, Chai Rong summoned Tian Ying, and together they devised a stratagem to suppress Buddhism through Buddhism itself. Tian Ying cast off his former identity and assumed the guise of a monk whose Fahao, or Dharma name, was Miaoshan. The meaning of Miaoshan unfolds through its two characters. In Buddhism, Miao refers to the transcendent realm of Dharma, symbolizing supreme truth and prajna wisdom. Shan denotes compassionate, altruistic action and pure moral conduct, the foundational virtues of the path. Together, Miaoshan signifies not only the attainment of profound dharma through the cultivation of good deeds, but also embodies the Mahayana ideal of compassion united with wisdom. This name is not an invention of the developers, but a direct borrowing from the well-known Chinese legend of Guanyin Pusa, preserved in the Xiangshan Baojuan, a religious narrative whose roots reach back to the early 12th century Song dynasty. The text recounts the story of Princess Miaoshan, who defied her father's command and insisted on becoming a nun. She endured trials such as descending into the underworld and witnessing the torments of hell, and later sacrificed her eyes and arms to save her father, ultimately attaining enlightenment as Guanyin Bodhisattva. This tale transformed the originally male Indian Avalokiteshvara into the distinctly female Guanyin of Chinese devotion. Thus, for a monk to bear the Fahao Miaoshan, the meaning is twofold: a personal aspiration and a public vow to follow Guanyin's example. After assuming the identity of Miaoshan, Tian Ying and Chai Rong fashioned a jade device that bent and reflected light into a radiant halo, placing it atop a tower on Halo Peak in Qinghe. At the appointed moment, the apparition would convince the people that Miaoshan was the true incarnation of the Buddha, and thus persuade them to follow his teachings. Later that year, Chai Rong and the Hanging Blade struggled to advance their policy of melting Buddhist statues to mint much-needed coinage. No one dared strike the first blow, The weight of centuries of religious reverence hung over every gilded image. Then, Tianying stepped forward with a second ruse. Master Miaoshan observed a 7-day ritual abstinence, and on the final day, before a gathered crowd, a single copper coin fell from the hand of a Buddha statue. Only then did the people dare to melt the statues down. Let us turn our eyes back to Miaoshan, the iron-hearted general. Sometime between 955 and 959, he learned that the later Zhou court had chosen to march south against the southern Tang rather than north against the Khitan. This unexpected reversal, born atop nearly a decade of strain and festering grief, finally broke his mind. Convinced that the imperial court would never resume the northern campaign unless the Khitan threat appeared imminent, Ye and the Tianhu army disguised themselves as Khitan soldiers and massacred the very town they had sworn to protect. In the wake of this horror, Miaoshan gathered a band of monks and razed the pagoda of Sin in the Bodhi Sea, imprisoning Ye and his remaining soldiers. To soothe Ye's torment and to conceal the secret of Halo Peak, Tianying sought Yang Daoxin, a master carver from Mercy Heart Town, famed for its Buddha statues. He had Yang split the halo-creating jade into 2 halves, entrusting one to Miaoshan as a talisman meant to steady his spirit and keep alive the hope of a future northern campaign. But after Tianying departed for the southern Tang in 959, Miaoshan's inner burdens finally consumed him. The solemn tolling of the Bodhi Sea's drum rekindled the madness within Ye and the last of the Tianhu soldiers. They descended into slaughter once more, killing the monks Miaoshan had left behind, as well as the townsfolk from Mercy Heart who had come seeking Master Miaoshan. Thus did a tragic hero meet his fall. That same year, Zhang Wulang left for the southern Tang to rescue Tianying at Wei Renpu's request, vanishing without a single word. You did not know where he had gone, nor when he might return. All you could do was bring fresh wine from Blissful Retreat to his old hut each year, the place you yourself had lived until the age of 10. At times you wondered whether this silence was simply the way the two of you had learned to speak to one another, rather than a testament to his absence. As a bounty hunter, Uncle Zhang had always disappeared without warning and returned just as abruptly. You remember one time he was gone for so long that, when he finally returned, he collapsed into bed and slept for 3 full days. Believing he had passed away, you ran to Aunt Han, sobbing that a grand funeral must be arranged. When Zhang finally stirred, he could only answer with a weary sarcasm that you were indeed a very filial child. And later, after the man in black tore away your pendant and left you lying outside Uncle Zhang's abandoned hut, you awoke once more to a familiar voice calling your name.
老大，老大，你快醒醒啊！不是说好一起去将军祠吗？怎么睡着了呀？